Yo, what up, guys? Travic here. And today I want to talk about something really cool and a little bit different. Today I want to talk about the Chronomancer that I have been playing. This character has been an insanely wild ride to put together and an absolute blast to play, as it requires you to literally click and do nothing. Yes, this character is the character that you just follow your homie around with, provide them with support, and then in theory, the riches will flow. This character does something very, very, very unique and very cool. This character is a rarity bot, meaning this character has 813% rarity that you give to your party members. This is a character that a bunch of people want to play in a party because they think rarity is the be all end all, and rarity will get you tons and tons and tons of loot. The reality is rarity is a very good stat. You can stack rarity very high. Rarity does indeed have diminishing returns, but rarity can be something that you can use to your benefit that really brings like a lot of good success. This character focuses on one very important thing. This character focuses on sharing its rarity through Gravebind gloves and standing on your carry. Essentially what happens is while you're doing a map, anything that is killed by anyone in your presence counts as being killed by you instead. And what this means is anybody that is around you, as your presence is an area around your character within certain effects such as auras are applied. By default, the area is 6 meters, which is relatively large, and you can be within a good distance of your carry. Essentially, while you're playing this character, if Doriani was your carry, you're gonna want to stay relatively with Doriani, on top of Doriani, or maybe like this far away from Doriani. The hardest part about playing this character becomes the ability to move in unison with your team member. But once you guys start moving in unison and you start doing really well thought out juiced maps, your loot should see an increase in theory. This build, like I said, has a ton of rarity. You share your rarity with your teammates. You also provide auras and supports to your teammates, and it becomes this really fun, nifty character to play. I did record 2 maps for group play, and I did kind of have like a little bit of a showcase, and I want to express something very, very, very important about this character. This character is a rarity bot, and rarity scales loot dropped from rare monsters. So if you do a map with not a lot of rare monsters, you're not going to find a lot of loot, and every time that you kill a rare monster, being with your homie is going to just like pretty much increase your loot altogether. Now, the character we're going to talk about, for this bot played a Chronomancer. I thought Chronomancer was a really cool choice. I actually got this idea from my buddy Hingle in Twitch chat. He was playing this character. He sent me over the POB and he was like, this is what I'm playing. This is how it works. And this is awesome. And I thought Chronomancer was absolutely sweet. It provides a lot of really good utility in the ability of time freeze, where I can just literally freeze all the monsters on the map and not have to worry about anything. It also has the ability, as you saw, to allow me to cast my spells over and over and over again with negating the cooldowns. And I can eventually, or pretty much just at any given point, press time stop and reset my abilities. So if things start to go haywire in the map with my friend, Chronomancer provides this amazing support ability to just stop everything and freeze everything. I actually have a really cool clip that I can play for you guys and show you guys of how it works on the Arbiter. Essentially what you see playing right now is you're gonna watch us go into this Arbiter fight. We're gonna come down here and we're just gonna let it pretty much do its thing. The Chronomancer has this fantastic ability to just freeze everything. Now, this includes bosses as well. So you'll be able to go into any encounter, any Uber boss, any Pinnacle boss, any map, any simulacrum, pretty much any content in the game without really stressing about what's going on. You walk up to the boss, you press your time freeze ability, and you see the boss just immediately stops. And things like Arbiter become a little kind of quirky, where you like freeze the Arbiter and you have to wait for him to move, and then he starts moving again, and then you freeze him again. He insta dies, but you don't need to freeze him again. And it does really fun stuff. Even in map bosses or like maps with bosses, you can freeze all the bosses. You can freeze Omni, you can freeze Kosis, you can freeze everything. The bosses just stay there, loot falls off them, their corpses are still there, and it's just a really good time. And that level of support is really, really, really nice. Now, the Chronomancer has a very, a few set of skills. Essentially, we have discipline from our wand or from our scepter. It's kind of like whatever. You don't need a scepter with discipline. It's just nice to have. It's what I had. So we give our extra carry, or we give our carry an extra 278 total maximum energy shield. We have Temporal Rift, which allows our character to pretty much just blink back to where it was. It's a cool little nifty skill. I don't really use it that often. It's a nice little get out of jail free card, but I did end up catching myself like pressing the button accidentally and resetting my character, and it makes things relatively awkward for the carry because you'll end up pressing the button accidentally and then you're teleported like 10,000 miles away. So I don't really use it that often. Time freeze is what you saw with the Arbiter, and that's what this ability here is. It allows me to freeze everything. It's got a quick little cooldown of 55 seconds, and everything is frozen in place for 30 seconds. We put persistence on this for extra skill duration. We're putting second wind, and that's what gives us those two uses where I can just chain them back to back. And we have magnified effect to increase the area of effect to roughly the entire length of the screen. Time snap is the ability to just reset all of our cooldowns. And then the rest of the skills are just pretty much things to keep us alive or to help make the map go smoother. We have blasphemy. Blasphemy is allowing us to equip our curses. Our quality on our blasphemy gives us reservation reduction, so you really want to do that. Blasphemy has temp chains. Temp chains is slowing all the enemies, so we are able to do that. We have increased effect of curses. We have conductivity because my specific carry is a spark carry. And if your carry's playing a different element, you could swap conductivity to the element that they're playing. Most players are indeed playing lightning, so we are using conductivity. Hex Bloom to help it spread when they die. Heightened Curse to increase the effect of our curses. And Ritualistic Curse to give us just more area of effect of the curse that we're working with. We do have Blink with Ingenuity. This way that we can blink a couple of times, and if you get really lucky with the Chronomancer's ability, you can continue to blink. Also, if you stack a bunch of jewels with cooldown reduction, you can really reduce the cooldown of this blink and pretty much be able to blink pretty much almost like having Temporalis, but not quite Temporalis, but you can like make some pretty good distance, and you see my blink cooldown is up relatively quickly. So it's pretty nifty. We have Mana Remnants to just give us extra mana. Mana is going to be a huge defensive layer, which you'll see when we get to the passive tree. And we have Grim Feast to give us extra energy shield. Currently, we have 4,800 energy shield and 1,600 mana, and we can double these effects with Grim Feast and Mana Remnants. Now, that's it for the skills. The character is pretty straightforward. All you do is freeze mobs if you need to, and then freeze mobs again if you need to, and then freeze mobs again if you need to, and then freeze mobs again, and then freeze mobs again, and freeze mobs again, because Chronomancer is completely busted and allows you to do things 100 times. Our gear is a little bit interesting and a little bit straightforward. The first and foremost, the major important thing is you want to have Gravebind gloves. This is what allows you to share your rarity and all your stuff with your teammates. These are extremely important. After Gravebind, everything else is just stacking a ton of rarity. The one thing you'll notice very quickly is I have 300 spirit. I have 60 left over. So you need roughly 270 spirit so that you can do everything. 270 spirit allows you to equip everything, but depending on what auras and what else you want to add to the character, having more spirits nice. The way we get all of our spirits is by having a scepter. This scepter gives us an extra 232 spirit. It gives us everything that we're going to need. If I take this off, you see I have 100 spirit base from the campaign, and this adds all of the spirit that we're ever going to need. You don't really care about a lot of the stats on the scepter. You really only care that it has a high amount of spirit. So you can very easily just go search for a scepter that has a whole lot of spirit and just kind of pick something up. The more spirit on the scepter, the more money it's going to be. This is going to be one of the bigger costs, or a cost that you're not really going to like. You're like, this can't be that bad, and then it ends up being that bad. Outside of that, everything else is, like I said, straight rarity. But we'll talk about the uniques first. We got a Moira Invictus body armor. This has 10% increased rarity per socket, and we have 10 to all elemental resistances. When I bought this, it wasn't very expensive. The big takeaway with this armor that you need to know: one, you don't care about the armor, the evasion, or the energy shield. All you care about is increased rarity and elemental resistances and 5 sockets. At the time of recording, it is not a very expensive body armor. It is relatively on the cheaper end. So it shouldn't be too hard to get this unless everybody decides that they're going to be playing a rarity bot. So as long as not everybody decides to play a rarity bot, this item should stay relatively cheap. The big thing, like I said, is you want 5 sockets so that you can add these rarity jewels in here. This body armor by itself is giving me 100% rarity, so it is pretty nice to have, and you're really going to want it. The other big unique is the Muxado's shield. Now, the Muxado shield is really interesting. It gives you increased effect of your soul cores. So if I take this off, you see that this shield is giving me 200%, or almost, or it's like 215, 220. I think it's 228. I think it is the exact math. It is giving me 228% extra rarity. The big takeaway with this shield is you want this shield with 3 sockets and as high a percent of increased effective soul cores. If I remember the math correctly, I think 660% is the actual breakpoint on this shield for the rarity soul cores. You might want more of effect of soul cores depending on what you're sticking in here. If you're not just sticking rarity in here, just do the math on the soul core, individual soul core times the percentage, and you'll be able to like figure out the breakpoint. But I want to say it's 660% off the top of my head. I bought a 665. My buddy Gummy bought a 666. You don't need a 665 or the 666, but you do need over 660 to make the most of this shield with increased item rarity. And the last unique is Ingenuity, because Ingenuity is completely crazy and absolutely busted. The biggest reason why we're using Ingenuity is because Ingenuity is scaling our rarity to the moon. And a really good example is if you see this one ring, it is like 120, 130% rarity, or it's like, yeah, it's like 120, 130% rarity because Ingenuity is scaling everything to the moon. Now, all of your rares are straightforward. Your helmet is as high of rarity as you can get with resistances. So like you'll see right away, we just searched 60% 2-socket helmet. Not very expensive, and it only starts to become relatively on the more expensive side depending on which type of resistances that you need. But you pretty much just want to find a helmet, 2 sockets, resistances, a little bit of energy shield, and as high as rarity as you can get. You can even go like you could just drop a little bit of rarity, get 58%, but the gear in itself slightly niche. Not many people are thinking about making these rarity bots. Not many people are thinking about an increased amount of rarity. You can really play with the numbers to get what you need. You see right now this helmet 26% in the suffix and then 32% in the prefix, little bit of resistances. The helmet, I think I spent like 6 or 7 divs when I bought it last week. The amulet in itself, exact same thing. You want your amulet to just have as much rarity as possible. I actually bought an amulet specifically because it had a ton of rarity and dexterity on it, so I didn't have to put dex on the tree, and I can get more int because I needed a little bit of dexterity for my body armor. So I bought an amulet with a bunch of dexterity on it already to cover all the dexterity that I needed. The amulet also had mana, which is really, really nice for the passive tree with mind over matter. And it just had an absolute metric ton of rarity. So with the amulet, you can even get resistances in your amulet. The rares are just going to cover what you need. The more rarity on your gear and the more specialized nodes, you see there's not a whole lot of options for high tier of rarity. But if I were to just cut this down, you see there are more options available. The only way that this gear completely blows up out of pocket is if more people start playing rarity bots. Now the boots, the exact same thing as the helmet. We got some boots with a little bit of movement speed. The movement speed is nice. More of movement speed is better, especially with keeping up with the faster carries. But because we're playing Chronomancer and we get a lot of blinks, we can really just kind of blink all around and just keep up. The carry has to stay with you because you're the bot, so you lead. Don't let them lead, you'll lead. Boots, like I said, exact same thing. We just grabbed as much rarity, 2 sockets as we can get, and went from there. And then you'll be able to figure it out as you go. You see there's plenty of options for boots. The only time that boots start to become a little bit more expensive is you start adding more movement speed, you start adding more resistances. If you want, the easiest way to go about this is to get high rarity rings with resistances in your rings. This way, Ingenuity can cover all of your resistances and make life really easy. And then the rings, also very straightforward, just as much rarity as you can get. Mana's really nice, resistances are really nice. I actually managed to find this ring. The reason I bought this variant of the ring is it had strength on it, and I was able to like fill in my gaps. Now you'll notice when I went shopping for my rare gear happened to have Cold and Lightning, and once again, Cold and Lightning, because when I went shopping, this was what was available to me at the time. You might find Fire and Cold, Fire and Lightning, Cold and Lightning, Fire and Cold. You might just find completely different gear. And then we use the rings here to fix our resistances problems. You can see right away, we were missing a little bit of fire resistance. We grabbed some fire resistance from this, and we just really went to town. Use your rares to fill in all the holes that are missing on your character. Now, everything else outside of that, the Chronomancer in itself, very powerful. We talked about the Temporal Rift. We see we have skills have a 33% chance to not use a cooldown. We have Time Freeze, and we have Time Snap. Outside of that, the tree is really strange and really weird. We go for things like increased skill effect duration. We get curse effect. We get some energy shield nodes. We get more skill effect duration. And this is so that our time freeze lasts for a long time so that we don't worry about accidentally getting killed. We're going to take a ton of jewel sockets. We're going to get a bunch of flat int. And the reason we're taking flat int is granting us extra mana, which is going to work out really, really, really well for mind over matter. We're taking more skill effect duration here, a jewel socket here, and chaos inoculation so that we are immune to chaos damage, immune to poison, and immune to bleed in the current state of the game. We get a bunch more energy shield over here, another jewel socket, more energy shield, max resistance here, mind over matter so that all damage is taken from mana before life. And then the rest of the tree just kind of does the same thing. You're going to grant effective auras from your skill. You're going to come over here, get more skill effect duration, come down here, get more skill effect duration, and then you're going to go towards these sockets. I actually got to go buy more jewels. I leveled up a little bit right before I started recording this. Me and my friend were doing some maps. I got some levels. I got my last 3 jewel sockets, and I got to go pick up jewels. Now, the jewels that we're using are pretty straightforward. They are giving us increased effective energy shield. They're giving us increased effective curses to make that nice temporal chains really slow down a monster. And the effect of curses is giving us more effect of that conductivity. And we're getting skill effect duration to scale our time freeze to the moon. All of our jewels do the exact same thing. Increased effective first, increased skill duration, and maximum energy shield. Other options for jewels include to get more maximum resistances, kicking up your resistances so that you're not very weak. If you play with a really strong carry, you are not going to need to worry about kicking up your maximum resistances. And that's it. That's the whole character. Pretty straightforward. Now, I did run 2 maps with my friend, and you'll see those 2 maps. I'm going to include them for you. The biggest thing that you need to know is this. 1, playing as a rarity bot is a lot of fun. It is great to group with your friends. It is a really good time to hang out with your buddies. And it is some of the most fun that you can have in Path of Exile. You jump into a map with your friends, you have a good laugh or two, you try to do breaches, you do simulacrum, you do all kinds of really fun events, and you make a bunch of currency. The way and the biggest takeaway though is the rarity bot is only really good if you properly juice your maps. Now you're gonna see the maps that we did, there wasn't a whole lot of loot, we didn't have really juicy rares. And when the loot did start to pop off, you'll notice it's when we kill rare mobs. You're even gonna see in the one map that we do that there's just not a lot of rare mobs and there's just not a lot of loot because sometimes you just get these bad tiles or these bad maps that do not have a ton of rares. Now, what you're really going to want, and the biggest takeaway from all of this is you're going to want to make sure that your map has increased rare monsters, your map has a ton of quantity, your towers give your maps a ton of quantity, and it has mechanics that you want to run, whether it be breach, simulacrum, or ritual. More monsters, more rare monsters, and there's even distills that you can use from simulacrums to increase pack size in your maps, increase rare monsters in your maps, and just really make it overall really strong. Now, a good duo is really strong in terms of farming currency, but a full party will always be better with like people who are leeching around. Essentially what you want is you want somebody killing the monsters, you following them, and then as many people as you can in the map to increase the amount of quantity bonus from party play, and you'll get more loot. The only downside is you end up having to split all this currency with people unless you convince them to only take experience while you and your buddy take all the loot. But I mean, whatever you set up with players is on you. The other big takeaway that I've heard from other rarities and other duo groups is you will probably make more money solo because you don't have to do a split. You could play at your own pace and you could do things. I make a lot more money doing my trials and doing Sanctum than I did in a group, but doing and playing in a group is a lot of fun. So you kind of like weigh out the options of what you're doing and what you're not doing. So that's just something to keep in mind. Rarity is really nice, but doing your own thing at your own speed and just flying through things without having to rely on somebody else can probably indeed make you more money, especially since you're not splitting things. The only time that group play can maybe possibly outshine is if you have a bunch of leechers and it's just you and your buddy splitting loot. But overall, you know, it just kind of comes down to what you want to do. Do I recommend the Rarity bot? Do I think it's sweet? I thought it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed what I did. I like being in Discord with my buddy and we're flying around looking for rare monsters, complaining there's no rares, finding rares, blowing up rares. And every single rare and every single like, loot explosion is like a absolute rush of dopamine because it's just cool. But yeah, I mean, like that's really it. The biggest takeaway, like I said, is playing in a group is sweet. Putting this character together is sweet. Anything over 100 rarity, you're chilling. Anything over 200, you're chilling. You do not need the 800. If you're going to start and you're going to go down this road, the last thing that I can really say is just get as much rarity as you can within budget with the Gravebind gloves on. Go start running maps with your friends. And if you like it, invest more. If you don't like it or it's not your playstyle, don't invest a ton. Start with 200, 300, 400 rarity. Very, very, very cheap to get started. You can even pick up the Moxodal Shield and the Mora Invictus and just get started like that. Pick up a wand, level a Chronomancer, put it on a character that you have and just put the gear on and just see what happens and see if you even like it. If you like it, go invest more. But that's really it. That's the whole character. A lot of people really wanted to see this. A lot of people really want them to explain what's going on. It is a very straightforward character. Stand on top of your homie kills the mobs, boom, get rich. But for now, friends, that's everything about the Rarity bot. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or something doesn't make sense, please leave a comment down below. Come stop by the Discord, stop by the live stream. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have about the Rarity bot or what we're doing with group play. But for now, friends, I'm going to get this video out to you guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.